71 degrees Celsius frozen hell. A brave girl's hunt that saved an entire village. The blizzard had been raging for 17 days in the remote village of Kolvak, nestled deep within the Siberian wilderness. The temperature had plummeted to minus 71 degrees Celsius. The cold wasn't just bitter, it was lethal, a living entity that crept through every crack, froze breath in mid-air, and turned exposed skin black within minutes. The villagers called it Ledianoyad, frozen hell. 16-year-old Anya Volkov stood at the frost-covered window of her family's cabin, her breath forming crystalline patterns on the glass. Outside, the world had vanished beneath a white fury. The storm had cut them off completely. No supply trucks, no communication, no hope of rescue. Worse still, their food stores were nearly depleted. "Anya, come away from the window," her grandmother Babushka Katya called from beside the dying fire. "You're letting in the cold." But Anya couldn't look away. She was thinking about the meeting that morning in the village hall, where Elder Dmitri had delivered the grim news. They had food for perhaps 3 more days, maybe 4 if they rationed carefully. After that, the village of 47 souls would begin to starve. Someone must reach the supply cache at the old hunting lodge, Dmitri had said, his weathered face grave. "It's our only chance." The lodge was 15 kilometers away through the taiga forest, a journey that in good wheat. Her took half a day. In this storm it was suicide. The men had looked at each other, then down at their boots. 2 hunters had already been lost trying to check their trap lines in the early days of the blizzard. Their frozen bodies had been found only meters from their homes, disoriented and overcome. No one had volunteered, but Anya had a secret. For 3 years since her father died in a log accident, she had been secretly learning the old ways from Babushka Katya. Her grandmother had been a Promyslovaya Zhenshchina, a hunting woman in her youth, one of the rare women who had mastered the brutal art of winter survival.
This little wolf will protect you, my dear. It's a special guardian passed down through generations.
How to keep the cold at bay when it wanted to devour you. That night, as the village slept fitfully in their freezing homes, Anya prepared. She dressed in layers, wool against her skin, then fur, then her father's old hunting parka lined with wolverine, the only fur that frost wouldn't cling to. She packed dried meat, a knife, matches wrapped in oilcloth, and her grandmother's compass. Most importantly, she took the bearskin her grandfather had hunted decades ago, roll, tight and strapped to her back. "You think I don't know what you're planning?" Babushka Katya's voice came from the darkness. Anya turned. Her grandmother stood in her nightdress, impossibly small and frail, yet her eyes burned with fierce pride. "I have to try, Babushka. You taught me for this." The old woman shuffled forward and pressed something into Anya's gloved hand, a small carved wolf. Whoa. RN smooth with age. "Your grandfather carried this. It always brought him home." She gripped Anya's shoulders. "Trust the forest, Venuchka. It will speak to you if you listen." At 3 a.m., Anya slipped out into the frozen hell. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath, making her lungs scream. The wind was a living monster, trying to tear her from the earth. Visibility was mere meter, but Anya had studied the route obsessively. She knew every landmark, every turn. She walked, 1 foot in front of the other. The snow was waist-deep in places, and she had to break trail with each agonizing step. The wind shrieked, throwing ice crystals that felt like knives against any exposed skin. Her eyelashes froze together. She had to stop every few minutes to clear the ice from her goggle. After 2 hours, she reached the first marker, a twisted birch tree that stood alone in a clearing. She was on course, but her body was already beginning to rebel. The cold was insidious, creeping through even her layers, searching for a way in. She unwrapped a piece of frozen meat and chewed it slowly, forcing herself to swallow. fuel for the furnace within. Then she heard it, a sound beneath tea. He wind. A low rumble. Anya froze, her heart hammering. Slowly she turned her head. Through the swirling snow, 2 yellow eyes gleamed in the darkness. Then 4, then 6. Wolves. They materialized from the storm like ghosts, gray shapes moving with terrible purpose. The pack was hunting, and she was prey. Anya's mind raced. Running was death. They would pull her down in seconds. Fighting was impossible. There were at least 7 of them, maybe more. She was 150 kilometers from anywhere, alone in -71 degrees, being stalked by a wolf pack. This was the moment. Live or die, she remembered Babushka Katya's words, trust the forest. Instead of retreating, Anya stood tall. She unfastened the bearskin from her back and in one swift motion, wrapped it around herself, becoming larger, more formidable. Then she did something insane. She walked directly toward the lead wolf. The alpha male stopped, confused. This wasn't how prey behaved. Anya growled, a deep guttural sound from her chest. She bared her teeth. She became the bear, ancient and dangerous, a creature even wolves respected. She held the alpha's gaze, refusing to show fear even as her heart threatened to explode. For an eternal moment, they stood frozen in tableau, girl and wolf, separated by 3 meters and the question of dominance. Then the alpha turned his head aside, breaking eye contact. A signal rippled through the pack. Slowly they melted back into the storm, vanishing as mysteriously as they had appeared. Anya's legs nearly gave out, but she forced herself to walk another 100 meters before. She allowed herself to collapse against a tree, shaking violently, not from cold but from the adrenaline. She had stared down death, and death had blinked first. The journey continued, an endless nightmare of cold, exhaustion, and pain. Anya's hands and feet had long since gone numb. She talked to herself, to her father, to her grandmother, to anyone who would listen. She recited poems, songs, pray, anything to keep her mind from surrendering to the seductive warmth of hypothermia. When she finally saw the dark shape of the hunting lodge emerging from the white chaos, she thought she was hallucinating. But no, it was real. Solid. Salvation. The door was frozen shut. Anya had to chip away ice for 20 minutes before she could force it open. Inside, the cache remained untouched. Canned goo, DS, dried fish, flour, medicines, enough to keep the village alive until the storm broke. But now came the impossible part, getting back. Anya knew she couldn't make the return journey carrying a full load, not in this cold. But she could make multiple trips. She filled her pack with the most critical items, medicines for the sick children, protein-rich foods, and began the return journey. She made it back to Kolvak, just as dawn broke, staggering into the village like a ghost. The men who saw her thought she was an apparition, impossible, returned from the dead. Over the next 3 days, despite everyone's protests, Anya made 2 more trips to the lodge, each time bringing back precious supplies. On the 4th day, the storm finally broke. The sky cleared to reveal a brutal, brilliant blue. The village had survived, 71 degrees below zero. A teenage girl with nothing but courage, knowledge, and the wisdom of generations. A village of 47 souls saved from starvation. Years later, when Anya became the youngest hunting guide in Siberia's history, people would ask her about that journey through the frozen hell. She would smile and touch the carved wolf that still hung Aro on her neck. The cold doesn't care about your fear, she would say. It doesn't care about your doubt. It only cares about your will to survive. And that day, I decided the cold would not win. In Kolvak, they still tell the story of the girl who walked into the frozen hell and came back with hope. They call her Volchitsa, the she-wolf. And on the coldest nights, when the wind howls and the temperature drops to impossible depths, parents tell their children about Anya Volkov, reminding them that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking that first step into the storm, even when every instinct screams to stay by the fire. The end.